Welcome back to another episode of the Kaulig Nation podcast. And we are going to focus today on SVG, his future, what he might be up to next season specifically, his season so far, and a problem that Ryan and I have been seemingly talking about for a couple of years now, Kaulig's short track issues. Not that they don't have other issues, and not that there aren't positives. This is definitely something that they need to get figured out, and sadly they're not showing any signs of that whatsoever. Without further ado, though, my co-host, Ryan. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, Sean. It's good to see you again. Good to talk to you. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I am a little disappointed with the performance of the cars the last couple weekends on these short tracks, and I know we're to dive into that. But when it comes to Kaulig, I'm very excited. I'm very excited about SVG and AJ. So a lot to get into.
For sure. And as I stated off the top, SVG's future and season so far and Kaulig track issues. If you're just tuning in, please take a moment, like the video, leave a comment, share your thoughts on what we're discussing. Our last video did very well and continues to have engagement on it. So really appreciate everybody who's new to the channel. Thanks for coming out. We're going to try to make a conscious effort to put out some more content. And it starts now. So, dude, SVG, first season, full season in North America. There's a lot of parallels for me, anyways, to Marcus Ambrose back in the day. Just on a surface level, before we get into some of the detailed statistics, how have you felt about SVG's first season in North America? Also remembering that at the end of the day, he is not a Kaulig driver. He's simply on loan. He's a Trackhouse guy.
All in all, I would say he's done very well for himself. I think we knew coming into the season there's going to be quite a few ups and downs and some good weekends and some bad weekends. And, all in all, I've been very impressed with where he's been able to run. He's finished on the lead lap in 13 of the 16 races so far this season on the Xfinity side. It seems to get better over the course of the race weekend. Even from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, I feel like Shane just continually improves and makes the car better. And I even felt this last week at New Hampshire. He was running, 25th, 26th in stage 1, and then by the end of stage 2, he had worked his way up to 15th. So I'm continued to be impressed by how quickly he has adapted and learned and makes progress over the race weekends. Now, I think it's fair to say we are running the Xfinity series, and while this Xfinity series is deeper than it has been in years past, I think it's fair to say there's about 16 good cars in the Xfinity series. So running much worse than that would be, not something I would expect. But he has taken to the ovals, I think, as good as I could have expected him to this point. And obviously we know his road course prowess. And man, I hate to say this, and I'm wearing the Allmendinger hat right here, but I think there's a new sheriff in town in NASCAR. I think AJ has been passed, and Shane has proven to be the best road racer in NASCAR. And I foresee that to be the case going forward. So he's done everything I could have hoped and asked of him to do. Obviously, he is a Trackhouse driver, and I kind of anticipate he probably will be called up to Trackhouse next season to run full-time in the Cup Series. But I do think while he's with Kaulig, he's done a great job, and he's proven himself to be a great teammate, and he seems to work really well with AJ and Josh Williams and whoever else is in the car with him. So yeah, I've been very pleased with where he's been at this year, and I expect him to only get better as we start coming back to these tracks for a second time here in the second half of the season.
Well, we don't have time for me to jump down your throat on that take that you just had, but I will say this. I think I need to see more than one street course win and 2 Xfinity wins before I'm willing to say that SVG is the best road racer in NASCAR. Certainly has a handle on the Xfinity races this past or during this season, but he has not shown that kind of speed when he's had Cup chances on road courses, even dating back to last year. So he's got a little bit to go there for me, but no doubt in terms of like a starting point, he's only going to get better the more he drives these cars and the more familiar he gets with these cars. So the sky is the limit for this guy, in my opinion. I think it's good, though, that SVG is not running. Like, I thought there was a real possibility, even in a Kaulig Xfinity car, even in a deeper field, that we were going to see a lot of 24th, 25th, 26th place finishes from him on a lot of oval tracks. And that hasn't happened. He's definitely not as strong as his teammate Allmendinger on the ovals. That's not even really close, to be honest. But he's been much better on the ovals than I thought he would. And like, he is 34. It's not like he's 24. But if you fast forward a couple of years and you look at where SVG could be, you know, that's scary. You know, I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 car in Cup every week, but if you're competing for wins on the Cup road courses and still 15th to 20th on most ovals, guess what? You're a contender. That's one way to be a contender in that series. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I want to dive into the stats here a little bit. Motorsportstats.com, I really like the way that they lay out their stats. I wish NASCAR, you mentioned it off air, NASCAR could take a tip in terms of presenting their stats this way. But obviously he has 0 championships. He's won 2 of the 16 races. He has Kaulig Racing's only 2 wins this year so far. 3 top 10s in 16 races, and one of them is on an oval. Sorry, 3 top 5s in 16 races. One of them's on an oval, and 4 top 10s in 16 races. His best finish is first. His best start is first. Average starting position 16th. Average finishing position is basically 16th, 15.81. He's only DNF'd twice, so I think that's really cool. He's finished in the top 3 times, so he's done quite well, and he's raced basically 2,400 laps this year, which is impressive. I really don't know if people could have expected more from SVG this season. We'll get into where we think he might go, but like, to me, he's meeting expectations. I think if your bar was higher than this, you're probably being a little unrealistic, especially considering the team itself is struggling to bring top tier equipment to racetracks.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything you just said. I think your reference to Marcus Ambrose is a really good one. Obviously, he is a rookie this year. He's got several more seasons, ahead of him, but I think the trajectory is certainly a fair comparison. And if he can reach that Marcus Ambrose level of competition at the Cup level, he will be competitive. He will have his opportunities. And I think he's already proven that, he's adapted to the super speedway racing very, very well, much quicker than I expected him to. We obviously know his prowess on the road courses, and his ovals are again, I agree. I wasn't expecting him to be running top 5 on a weekly basis. I think going into the season, my expectation was he would finish closer to the top 10 than the top 15. I do think as we get into the second half of the season, we'll see that performance jump, or at least I kind of expect a performance jump from 15th closer to 10th. But I'm certainly not disappointed with how he's ran. And you touched on it, the 2,400 laps, right? As a rookie, any rookie, I don't care if you're 19 years old or 34 years old, the only way to get better is to turn all the laps. And outside of his 2 DNFs, he has more or less finished on the lead lap in every race. Iowa was a bad weekend, very bad weekend for him. He wrecked his car in practice, went out and wrecked his car halfway through stage 1, did not get an opportunity to turn a lot of laps, and missed an opportunity to really learn. But he hasn't done, that was the exception, not the rule. He has done a great job of keeping the car under him, bringing it home in one piece, and just learning and evolving. And I thought about this over the weekend at New Hampshire. I was kind of disappointed with how he was running. I was like, man, he's really deep in the field. But then I have to, kind of step back and say, well, they didn't have practice. They didn't have qualifying. It got rained out. The field was set by the metric. He started very deep in the field, 28th, because of his performance at Iowa. And, the whole first half of the race, he was just learning how to race on a track. And, oh, by the way, they started on rain tires, right? The first 10 laps of the Xfinity race was on rain tires. So the amount of variables that were thrown at him at New Hampshire were far and away more than anything I think he's seen all season. And by the end of the race, was pretty competitive with where we kind of expect him to run on a weekly basis. So definitely impressed with his stats to this point. I think by the end of the year, those top 10s will probably be closer to 10 or so top 10s and at least 5 or so top 5s. So again, I've been very impressed. I was not expecting any more than what we've seen. And I think he's proven at this point that he's capable of taking the next step even further the rest of the way.
So, at the end of the day, Kaulig is, they're a step behind, maybe even a couple of steps behind, and they can't seem to catch up. And the fact that he's been able to do as good as he has, I think, just is, kudos to him and Bruce and everybody on that team. Obviously, he's on the old AJ team, and I think they've done a really good job. That does lead me to the question, though. Before we get to, I guess we're kind of already touched on the Kaulig short track issues, which definitely haven't helped SVG in terms of his first season. But we'll do this a little bit out of order. It's not getting any better for them, man. Not on the cup level, not on Xfinity. They're utterly lost when it comes to short tracks. And it's concerning because this is the same conversation we've had for north of 2 years now.
It's redundant at this point for us. We've been doing this show for 2.5 years, and we've been saying this from the very first episode, that their short track package in particular, especially with the new Gen 7 car on the Cup side, has been absolutely atrocious. And even on the Xfinity side, every year I feel like we've taken a step back and a step back and a step back. And listen, I think it's fair to say some drivers have their preferences, right? And we know, in particular with AJ, flatter short tracks have kind of never been his strong suit. We see it at Richmond. We've seen it in the past. Obviously this year at New Hampshire, but Phoenix as well. Just it's always been a struggle with these types of tracks. And the fact that we aren't even sniffing the top 10 at the moment, even with AJ, who does have the experience to run up front, is concerning. And I don't know how to make it better. In fact, the Xfinity program, which again, I want to reiterate, we are a tier 1 Xfinity program. We are getting the best resources from Chevy. We're getting the data, and it's just not working. We're not doing it. So
I'm going to play devil's advocate here and say, yeah, that's what we've been told, but I'm not sure I buy that we're getting the exact same treatment as Junior Motorsports, and I'm struggling to remember the other one, but RCR. They can say we're tier 1, but guess what? It doesn't seem like it. Those other teams are clearly a step ahead. So if we are tier 1, then it's something in-house that we're doing wrong, which is even more concerning. So, to me, there's no positives right now on the short track side. Utterly lost, and Martinsville is one of AJ's best ovals, and even he has not been able to help the team there, which is disheartening in every way imaginable. And it doesn't help SVG in terms of improving on the ovals either, but the question is, what do all you think about Kaulig Racing short track woos? You might say they have several other issues, and you might say they have a lot of positives in terms of what's going on there as well. But specifically, I don't think there's any debating the short track program is a bit of an abyss. What do you think needs to be done in order to improve there? Let us know in the comment section down below. And also let us know what you have thought of SVG's season so far, which brings us to our final topic of this episode. Will he be back with Kaulig Racing next season? And if not, what will he be doing? We're Ryan, give me a couple of takes here. Where do you stand with where you think he's going to be, and where you think he should be? Which they don't necessarily line up. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but they don't have to.
Yeah, this is honestly a very difficult question, Sean. I think, at the start of this year, if you would ask me at Daytona if SVG had a real opportunity to be running full-time in the Cup Series in 2025, I would have said no, probably not. I think, especially with Trackhouse, the way they've kind of oversold their driver lineup. They have Ross Chastain, who's a championship contender, Daniel Suarez, who's a race winner this year. Then, of course, SVG shocked the world. He had all the hype. But I was much more excited about Zane Smith as a Truck Series champion making the leap to Cup Series. I would have put a lot of money on the fact that Zane Smith would have been the first choice for Trackhouse. And now, today, I kind of feel like SVG has a real opportunity, a real leg up to be in the Trackhouse Cup program in 2025. While it hasn't been announced, it's all but for certain that they will have a third charter coming over from Stuart Haas. And I think SVG has, as of today, the leg up to get that seat. I think things could change, but right now I would say that's where I think he will be. Where I think he should be is with Kaulig. I think he's worked now. Kaulig Xfinity or even the Kaulig 16 Cup car, I'm still open for debate on this. I do think he needs another year. I hate when drivers get rushed to the Cup Series. We've seen it over and over and over again that drivers that get rushed to the Cup Series, especially coming from a different racing series. We saw it with AJ. He was awful his first couple of years in NASCAR. We've seen it with Danica Patrick coming over from IndyCar, Sam Hornish coming over from IndyCar. These drivers get 1 year in the Xfinity Series, they go straight to the Cup Series, and it's a disaster. And while I do think the Gen 7 car has equalized the playing field, and the Gen 7 car definitely represents the Australia supercars much closer than our previous generation of NASCAR, I do think another season in the Xfinity program or at the Kaulig Cup program to get seasoning, to get the opportunity to get more track time, more laps, would be the right thing for all parties involved. I think it would help Kaulig out financially and continue to grow the relationship with Trackhouse. And I think it would give Trackhouse another year to evaluate their own driving talent, because if you want my personal humble opinion, Daniel Suarez kind of lucked into his win this year. And without that win in Atlanta, he would be on the outside looking into the playoffs. And I don't know if he's still their long-term solution in the car. I could definitely see, Daniel Suarez at the end of 2025 moving on. And then at that point, I think Shane would be the proper person to put in that car. So where I think he'll be with Trackhouse. Where I think he should be would be Kaulig Xfinity for 2025.
Yeah, I think there's going to be pressure for Trackhouse to put him in the car because you have, I think right now the rumor is they might go back up to 6 road courses next year in the Cup Series from 5. We'll see if that pans out. But that's 6 opportunities for wins. And he will be the favorite regardless of what car he's in going to Chicago, because he's the one with the most street racing experience in there. And I thought that, at that track last year, he was just so far and away better than everybody else. So there's going to be pressure to put him in because he has an opportunity to win. That being said, even in a Trackhouse car, man, I think if they're moving him up to Cup next year, he is going to really struggle on ovals. I think it's going to not look good at all. I think it's going to be reminiscent of Patrick Carpentier back in the day, where he's competitive on road courses, but on the ovals, not so good. I'm not saying he can't get better at them, but just not enough seat time in them, not enough understanding in terms of how it works. And if you've watched Xfinity races this year, even though, he's outrun some of the other cars just based on equipment, some of the lines he takes and the way he handles the car is not, it screams rookie. That being said, Trackhouse might look at that and go, hey, one, we have sponsors that are willing to put him in the car. Two, he's going to give us, 6 bullets in the chamber to win a race. And, he's not young. He's 30, 35 now, I guess. So I think all that adds into whatever the final take's going to be. But I'm with you, man. I think that SVG would be served better with another year in Xfinity, not because he needs it on road courses, but he needs it on the ovals for sure. And he's only going to be better for it. So we'll have to wait and see. The question is, what do all of you think is going to happen with SVG, and what do you want to happen with SVG? I imagine Trackhouse fans are eager to get him back over there onto their own team rather than have him lent out. We'll have to wait and see. There's definitely the possibility that, Zane Smith might come to Kaulig, whether it's Xfinity or Cup on a loan, and SVG goes over there. Even Daniel Suarez. I still don't think doing the loan thing benefits Kaulig at all long term, but this is kind of the position they're in. Let us know in the comment section down below what you thought of this episode. We would love to hear your takes. And again, we appreciate the support. Tune in basically probably tomorrow is my guess for another episode of Kaulig Nation. For Ryan, I'm Sean, and we'll see you on the flip side.